Okay, we're recording. I'm gonna just briefly talk about WFP's open data policy, as well as some of the work that we're doing in the Pacific, as well as application and uses of some of the data that we collect, as well as going into a bit about MVAM, and what's that all about. MVAM stands for Mobile Vulnerability Analysis and Mapping Initiative, and I'll go a bit into that later and how it relates to open data. Yeah, I guess I basically said that already. Now, WFP in the Pacific, mainly we function within the cluster system. For those of you that do not know, looking really, the objective is to strengthen the Pacific Island countries' national disaster management officers' capacities, their capabilities to prepare for and respond to disasters in line with WFP's global mandate and cluster lead agency obligations. This is, oh, are we still on that page? Sorry, next. I forgot I'm not controlling the next. Thanks, then. Yes, no, back one. There. Okay, every page I'll say next. Thanks, then. So yeah, just within specifically WFP's functions are focused on the main three clusters, being the Pacific Food Security, Logistics, and ETTC. ETC is mainly looking at the communications infrastructure, getting that back up and running right after disaster, as well as private and public sector engagement. Logistics, this is a coordinated mechanism. Currently working with the National Disaster Management Officers, improve their logistics capabilities, especially working with the cluster, with the cash working group. This is a subset of the cluster system. Support WFPs provide support to welfare, food security. What I'll be talking about this afternoon really is on VAM's work, which is the unit that I'm a part of, and a lot of what we do is really in terms of emergency preparedness, response, and recovery, as well as assisting governments trying to build that resilience and protecting the most vulnerable. Probably the major work that we actually are part of is really food security analysis, monitoring, and as I've mentioned, related to early warning. Yeah? Next slide, please. Yeah, so WFP VAM, the vulnerability and analysis mapping, aims to make all food security data it collects as open as possible in order to provide the most accurate and timely information in today. In order to make data more user-friendly, we rely on a number of data visualization tools, whether that be Power BI, Tableau, ArcGIS Online Platform, whatever the country's request, as well as what's suitable for the purpose of what we're trying to visualize. VAM also provides data related to food security to the HDX, that's the Humanitarian Data Exchange. So a lot of what we produce, whether spatial or non-spatial, is shared with the Humanitarian Data Exchange that is headed from UN OCHA. Next slide, please. And yeah, in regards to application and uses of sort of what we're trying, the activities that we're doing, WFPAM has worked with many government ministries, and application of data is based on BAM strategy and programming of country needs. So very briefly, I'm going to just touch on a couple of activities. Some activities associated with VAM have been for risk analysis. This is what could happen, where, to whom, food economy analysis, household food production, household income opportunities, wealth coping mechanisms, vulnerability analysis, who is chronically food insecure, emergency assessments and targeting. You see this a lot during disaster. monitoring and evaluation, looking at the impact of the work being done. Did we do the right thing? Did we provide the service or the assistance to the vulnerable groups and the targeted populations? Next slide, please. So in regards to risk analysis and emergency assessment, these are some of just the products that we've been working on. The first top left one is really a initial assessment from our 72-hour reports that we produce. We've done a number of trainings with countries for Fiji, Tonga, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, basically trying to upskill the capacity within the government to better better prepare spatial data sets, as well as have the capacity to analyze this information and try and produce some projections in terms of cyclone path and buffer areas, population projections, where most areas of impact, or as well as in terms of a severity of disaster. That's specifically for Fiji, and you can see like areas 1, 2, 3 based on that is Tropical Cyclone Harold, I believe, in 2020, early 2020. On the top right hand side, something I'll be talking about later. This is our Mvam dashboard that is easily accessible online. We can share the links to that later on. Below is the initial for the household major damage, is what we did with the Tonga government, the NEMO, National Emergency Management Office, just mapping out the households that had more damage than others, specifically for their initial damage assessments that was happening right after TC Herald. Something a bit more recent is some work we did for Samoa. It was a macro and micro level analysis to food security due to COVID-19. So we collated a lot of data related to demographics, to livelihoods, as well as some GDP information that we were hoping that the government would be better, would find themselves in a better location to assist and manage if an outbreak actually happened. So it's just an excerpt from that product. Next slide, please. Thank you. So just briefly, these are some of the resources that you can use to find some of the information that I've mentioned. With WFP, we've partnered with the United Nations, specifically the UN OCHA, Coordination for Humanitarian Affairs, teamed up with them to share all of our data in regards to access to a lot of global data and hunger and food insecurity. And a lot of our information is already on there if you were to look for some of it. And I'm sure some of you have already used the Humanitarian Data Exchange for admin boundaries and the lot. The Hunger Map 2020, this is something that for the Pacific needs to be updated. It's basically showing the around the world prevalence of undernourishment in the population of countries, as well as different food insecurity trends that are happening. So it's somewhat good to look at in relation to our country and on the global scale as what other countries are going through. I mean, some of these countries are, like, as you know, in the news right now with Afghanistan, there's a lot of information that you can find on there, and some of this is actually recorded in near real time. The Automated Disaster Analysis and Mapping ADAM platform, for those of you that are not aware, this specific platform helps to, it's basically an automated system that's been developed in-house for the collection and analyzing of mapping geospatial and socioeconomic data related to natural hazards. So once you subscribe to it, you would be getting alerts if a cyclone, really looking specifically at two disasters, whether it's a tropical cyclone or an earthquake. So a tropical cyclone, it presents a map showing affected population, estimated affected population, as well as other indicators. If it was an earthquake, show similar information, as well as display a shake map, as it's called. WFP GeoNode, this is something more closer to what we have in information. basically throw it up on there. We catalog it, as well as so a lot of the most recent disaster information related to estimates from TCIASA and TCIANA is on this site as well. Again, if you see one of our products out there and you would like to know more about it, or you'd like to see what can be shared, I mean, put it in the corner, just ask. We're totally open to sharing data as and sometimes we put the I mean, there are certain data privileges that some might have, and this is in regards to government. So if I work with government would not want to share it, obviously then you have some data privacy, confidentiality concerns to be aware of. But otherwise, we try and make the data as easily as accessible, as well as user-friendly as possible. Next slide, please. Now, going straight into Mvam. Mvam, as I've said before, is a mobile vulnerability and analysis mapping initiative. We use live calls. So basically, a call center is set up whereby calls are made to individuals, to respondents, based on their location, sometimes based on like how much credit they buy, or different specific socioeconomic indicators. And those calls are placed randomly across a country to identify specific indicators, which I'll look into in a bit. But really, one of the reasons why why probably Pacific Island country governments have gone with the Mvam strategy of doing these remote surveys via over the phone is because of the Pacific's unique geography makes face-to-face data collection and monitoring challenging. We know that mobile service providers infrastructures are growing, so that's why with it increasing, obviously the more people would have access to mobile phones, and therefore that's how we reach out and make the calls. However, I mean, obviously with COVID too, COVID has certainly complicated fieldwork for governments, and this is where a lot of governments have reached out to do more Mvam, simply because they are not able to go out themselves due to a number of restrictions, obviously with the whole thing with COVID. Due to risks associated with existing vulnerabilities and exposure to natural disasters, enhanced remote and ongoing food security monitoring is necessary for data-driven coordination. So, you know, we're really trying to be aware of the current needs of governments, as well as the limitations that might happen during a disaster. I mean, you can't necessarily do remote phone calls right after the disaster, but you'd have to work in close collaboration with emergency telecommunications to get those towers and infrastructure back up before you do these mobile phone surveys. So there's a lot that goes into it. And in terms of some of those indicators, you can see in the bottom right, respondents listen to information from WFP or record their feedback. This is dates of food distribution, food prices, and any other information on WFP projects or government worker. Next slide, please. So this is where we're currently operational, and before we were collecting data, 149 survey questionnaire in Kobo Toolbox. This data was collected by call centers throughout these 5 countries, and really looking at that specific indicators related to livelihoods, food consumption score. That's how much food is eaten in a 7-day time span. Livelihood-based coping strategies for essential needs. These are what coping strategies respondents are employing right now in this time. And multi-dimensional deprivation index. This is related to health, education, food security, as well as living conditions. Data is now being collected quarterly. Before, this was being collected monthly, but just due to doing a number of countries, you know, it's best to just keep it quarterly and report that to government. Next slide, please. So in regards to the current COVID situation in Fiji, WFP works in collaboration with Ministry of Agriculture, as well as Ministry of Maritime, Rural Development, as well as just to assist the response. And a specific data team or technical working group has been formed out of the Ministry of Agriculture, of which WFP is a part of, and that's really what's helped us strategize what type of assistance we can give the government. Um, and what you're viewing right now is specifically the 2 containment zones in the western and central areas, as well as the districts that exist within them. And this is how we've done our random sampling for the Mvam calls. They've gone out within these specific districts within the western and central containment zones, and dividing them based on sector, so whether they are urban or rural. Next slide, please. Just a bit about the strategy in terms of the sampling and indicators that are collected. For that Mvam sub-national survey, you're looking at 1,800 randomly selected households. This information is collected at the district level within the containment areas, and specifically looking again at livelihoods, remittances, debt, what caused the debt, why are they in debt, how long are they in debt for, food consumption score again, as I've mentioned, as well as the livelihood-based coping strategies. As well as being a part of the technical working group, we've also leading on the community leader survey. This is where we target specifically communities, and we identify the villages and settlements within them, within these containment areas, and then we look specifically at food ration distributions, market access, cash transfer, as well as vulnerable households. And the last box there is based on our key informant interviews survey, more of a qualitative survey, really trying to identify those vulnerable groups and what's impacting them at this point in time. So that's the last 2 boxes are going into more detail into the types of surveys that we're conducting, but more so when it comes to the Mvam subnational data, we have our dashboards that are online that anyone can access and view and download information on the current situation. Next slide, please. I believe this is my final slide. So this is what when you open the Mvam dashboard, what it looks like, the first page, looking at the population distribution, and a lot the indicators that you see around are from the 1,829 respondents, I believe, that we captured data from in terms of the sampling for those specific districts. And you can view data based on type of head of household, based on region, as well as households specifically with persons with disability. So yeah, there are a number of ways to view the data as well as aggregate it as you see fit. Again, this is something that we're doing in collaboration with government. So there are some privacy concerns related to government and their response. So I think that's about it. Thank you. Can we take questions now or after the second presentation?
I think we could take questions now. Does anyone have a question for Anare? You could just unmute yourself and ask away. Or if you prefer, we could definitely, because it was quite a lot of information, Anare.
I tried to cover a lot of things.
Maybe if questions do pop up in anybody's mind, they could definitely post them in the chat, and we can reserve the session after Salata's presentation. But, oh, somebody had a hand. Who is that? Oh, okay, Conway. Would you like to ask a question?
Oh, thanks, Henry. I just wanted to see a demo of the dashboard.
Sure, we can see that. I'm not sharing the screen, so I could. Sorry. Yeah, just because I always have technical issues and my screen freezes up. I think I'll put it in the chat. where you can find the dashboards. Give me a moment. So this is on the Pacific Food Security Cluster page. Right now, I believe that's where most of our dashboards we put them. Sorry, I just did a direct message to Nemaya. I'll put it to everyone so everyone can have access to the dashboards. Hey, thanks, Nem. So if you can go through that. I'm just concerned about the internet speed, but yeah, I'll click on G. Okay. Oh, set. So right on the top left, just very briefly, if you scroll up a bit, you have the months in which the Mvam is done. So you can look at round 8, or you can go right back to July, I believe, for round 1, which is July, August last year. And this is a sample survey. So the sample is 400 responses from households around Fiji. So there's a specific sample by province. And you have socioeconomic overview, looking specifically at the breakdown of demographics, as well as some key indicators related to livelihood, types of employment, that sort of information, food security and coping strategies. This is where specifically, oh, sorry, I'm going a bit too fast there, but yeah, I'm watching the mouse. So the right-hand side shows the basically the portion distribution by types of head of household. I'm not a nutrition expert, but I mean, I know a bit about how the information is gathered in terms of nutrition. So we look at hemine and protein and vitamin A food groups, and when the questions are asked, they're really based on those specific food groups, and then the respondent answers whether they've eaten like bread, consumed any dairy, oil, tea, everything is specified, and within a 7-day timeline. You won't be able to really give back any more information besides 7 days. And then you can look at essential needs and livelihoods. Since I'm not the one controlling the dashboard, and the link is in the chat box, please make it as user-friendly as possible. And please, my email is in the presentation. If anyone has any comments about it, any critique in terms of what is it trying to show, happy to for the feedback, if any. Thanks, Dan.
Thanks, Anare. That was very informative. Just a question: what platform do you use to develop this platform? This dashboard? Tableau.
Tableau. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, at the bottom you have access to some of the reports, some guidance, a manual, just so there's a bit more information on what the indicators are trying to show, as well as general Mvam, what it's about. Because I mean, this whole portal, I mean, Mvam is done globally. Yeah? We just contextualize it for any specific context that we're doing it in. Sorry, Carol, did you have a question?
No, sorry, you're still explaining. But I did have a question from Reveal to also, if it's possible, to have the access.
Oh,
the link
Adam.
for Adam.
Yes, please. Oh, you mean the access link? Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah. If you literally just search Adam WFP, I think there comes the portal to sign in. But as the presentations are happening, I'll post that up in the chat box, so people can also have access to that. So when you sign up for Adam, you'll be notified if there's an incoming cyclone or earthquake, as well as geospatial information related to that. So you'll be able to download actual shapefiles of the data, whether it be the buffer zones for the cyclone or the cyclone track, or any of the specific data points of where it's at in the timeline. So that information you'll have access to. So if you're not able to, I'm right now searching online for the sign-in page so that everyone can have access to that and sign up.
Yeah, I think Anare, during your 72-hour workshop that we training that we attended last time, you had presented, no, you gave us the subscription for this Adam platform, and I subscribed from that time. What he was saying was, yeah, you get email notifications, you get a PDF report of like what kind of disaster is happening, whether it's an earthquake or tropical cyclone, and you actually get links to download shapefiles basically of like the cyclone path, where the earthquake happened, and even if it has population information on like who, what, where will be affected, it also provides you that. Yeah, it's a pretty useful add-on. I mean, it's pretty useful automated service.
Thanks, Dan.
The platform is still open. The floor is still open, rather, for anyone who has questions for Anare. We have Sioli Tonga from SPC. He's raising his hand.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Anare. Hi, Carol. And hi, Nimaya. Just question for Anare. Since we're talking about open data, and you know this is a problem we struggle with ourselves, is the publishing of data for reuse and under what licensing conditions we're allowed to release the data. So I'm interested in particularly in the Mvam data. I know you were negotiating the release of the data with different countries, with the governments, but is there any information that you can share with us about how the data is licensed for reuse?
Sure. Well, currently we're actually speaking internally in terms of SPC. As you are from SPC, we're trying to get it on the Pacific Data Hub. So like we've had discussions internally, and I'm just waiting on my country director to give the okay. And once we get the okay from our country director, and anyone would be able to host it on their website. But really, I mean, in terms of licensing and agreements in place, probably have to check some documentation on that, specifically with the open data policy. Yeah. And that's something we can easily get from our regional Bangkok bureau, and I can supply to you after this meeting if you want. But yeah, I think we'd probably be talking a lot in the next coming days about that open data policy between us, WFP and SPC. Thanks, Sergio.
Fantastic, thanks, Anare. I asked because I think there's great potential for using the data sets from different sources, from Mvam and from other data sources within the Pacific Data Hub to generate new insights. There's more value in making that data available. So I'm really excited to see you guys doing this work with WFP.
Yeah, and I think it's time we do it too. As you know, WFP it's a UN agency, and there are other UN agencies out there that host data. And yeah, we look to the Pacific Data Hub as a means to collating all of this information. So yeah, I think exciting times ahead. And thanks, Sio.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
Thanks, Anare. I have one question, actually, another question. I'm interested in how you work with, the other agencies listed here on how you develop the questionnaire. Was it disseminated, the workings behind it? Can you just briefly, maybe a minute or two, go into that?
I actually had a slide for that. I submitted because I didn't think anyone would want to know the actual process. But there is a process. So yeah, a lot of times it's really trying to sell the idea of conducting an MVAM, and a lot of times governments are looking for a way to collect this information, and we just try and inform them of a way of doing it remotely. And because WFP is a global organization, we do have access to the resources to do this very quickly, as well as have the capacity and the technical skills can be brought on very quickly to set up an MVAM. But first and foremost, we really start looking at we really start discussions with government as well as other partners such as FCOS on the design of the whole project. We come up with a work plan, as well as because we already have a template for the questionnaire, we look at trying to adapt that questionnaire for the local context. So this is where we partner with Ministry of Agriculture, like I mentioned, FCOS, Fiji Bureau of Statistics, as well as a number of key departments and ministries that give us a lot of input, critique. They say, these questions are not suited for this location. Can you further adapt what you're presenting? And then once everyone has finalized the questionnaire, we run trainings with our call center, get them up to speed with what we're trying to develop. Once they're all set, then we finalize some other issues related to doing an MVAM with a specific country, going back to government saying, this is where we're at. Do you agree? Are you happy? Yeah, and just a lot of back and forth with governments, getting the questionnaire sorted, getting the government's agreement, making sure it's contextualized, making sure donors are happy, making sure that we're reaching the population that we're trying to. And then obviously, while this is all happening, we're formulating a data pipeline in regards to how we're going to disseminate this information from once it comes into an application like Kobo Toolbox. So what that data pipeline would look like. There's a whole plan that goes into that initiative. Parts of the process I am aware of, parts I'm still unaware of, simply because there's so many internally. We have a lot of experts that are specifically focused on different areas of our data pipeline. And then we have this information in near real time goes into the data pipeline, goes into our Tableau dashboard that's created. A lot of data is cleaned, analyzed, indicators, and then disseminated, and then we try and have a report within a month. So this is something that we do, more of a static report that just tries to analyze a lot of the information that's coming in. Sorry, that was a bit messy in my description, but
no, that was exactly what I was going for. But the majority of the data is collected through mobile surveys.
Yes, all the data comes from the mobile vulnerability survey. Initially, we do that. That is representative at a national scale. You can't necessarily try and ask for specific information by province. The reason being for that is because the sample is representative. The 400 people that we contact is representative at the national level. If you want to go another level, such as province or district level, then we need to make more calls. And that's what we've done with subnational MVAM, where government looked at the national data, said, look, this is great. Now can we get something more detailed by the district, by the containment zones, so it can help inform what we're trying to do on the ground in terms of our response. So that's why we went further down with collecting data at the district level, which is representative mainly at the two containment areas that you have for Fiji, the western and the central.
Got it. Thank you, Anare. Thank you for that very informative session.